All right, class, today we're going to be learning about slope. All right, so when we're talking about slope, the formula that we use for slope is y equals mx plus b. The reason why we use this formula is that this formula will help us graph. When we're talking about slope, we're talking about graphing. All right, so slope is graphing. We use this formula to tell us the slope, and we use this formula to tell us the y-intercept. M is the slope. The slope means rise over run. If you notice, rise over run is written as a fraction. So we always want our slope to be written as a fraction because it will be easier to graph it in that way. Mr. Beavers, what if it's just like a number 2? If it's a number 2, then what we will do is we will say it equals 2 over 1. Our rise will be 2 and our run will be 1. We always want slope written as a fraction because it will make it easier to graph. Now we go with our b. Our b is our y-intercept. The y-intercept, it tells us our first point on the graph. It is one of the most important points because it let us know where the line is going to cross the y-axis. So if I was to draw a sketch of a graph, this is my y-axis and this is my x-axis. The y-intercept lets us know when this line is going to cross the y-axis. That's why it's important. What we do is, we graph our first point, which is the y-intercept, and then from that point, we can use the slope to find the next point. I'll go over it, don't worry. So the first point is 0b. The reason why it is at 0 is because if we're looking for where the line crosses at the y-axis, then that means x has to be at 0. X has to be at 0 because we want to know where this line, where this point is going to be at on this line right here. The next thing I want to talk about is a positive or negative line. Your line can be positive or it can be negative. And what determines a line being positive or negative is the slope. If your slope is negative, if slope is negative, then your line will be
Negative.
If your slope is negative, then the line will be
Negative.
There we go. If the slope is negative, the line is negative. If the slope is positive, the line is what?
Positive.
The line is positive. All right? These are the basic foundations that you need to know how to graph. Cool?
Cool.
All right, so let's just do an example since this is a review. Yes. Oh, okay. Don't erase it?
Yeah,
Okay. I can write over here. We are going to graph the line y equals 1/3 x plus 2. I want everybody to write that down. Y equals 1/3 x plus 2. If we're going to graph the line that equals y equals 1/3 x plus 2, the first thing we do before we can get on that axis and graph is that we must figure out the basic information. So what we need to know is, what is our m, what is our b, and is this line positive or negative? All right, those are the three things that I want to know before we even get on this graph. So, class, what is our m in this problem?
1/3.
1/3. And if our m is 1/3, our rise is what number?
2.
3.
Oh, wait.
Our rise is what?
1.
1. And our run is what?
3.
Why do you keep saying 2? There we go. Now, you back there, what's the B? What's the B?
2.
2. The B is 2. And if our B is 2, what is the coordinate point for the y-intercept? It's what?
0,
0, 2. That's our first point on the graph. 0, comma 2. And now, is this line positive or negative?
Positive.
It is positive. And it is positive because our slope is positive. So can I use this graph over here?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to make some lines. So I have to go to our first point. Our first point is at 0, 2. All right, so I'm going to go to 0, 0. This is 0, 0. And I'm going to go up or down. How many?
2.
Am I going up or down?
Up.
Up, 2, 1, 2. This is our first point on the graph. Do we all understand that? Is there anybody that's like, Mr. Beavers, I'm lost? If you are lost or if you have any questions, please raise your hand and let me know what you're confused with. No questions? All right. So then our next point will be our rise. What is our rise?
1.
And our run is
3.
and our line is positive. So a positive line, you guys remember how I say we should know how a positive line goes and a negative line? A positive line will go this way, correct?
Yes.
This is positive. A negative line will go this way. So if we know the direction of our line, then we know how we should use our rise and our run. I'm going up how many?
1.
Going up 1, and then am I going to the right or the left 3?
Right.
3, 1, 2, 3. This is our next point right here. Our next point is at 3, 2. Our next point is at 3, 2, because you go to the X first. Is at 3. I'm sorry. I got to go up 1. Nobody catch that. It's at 3, 3. We got to go up to the 3, and then we're going to go up 3. So I went up how many? 1, and then I went over how many?
3.
1, 2, 3. Now, go back to your first point. I can go down how many?
1.
Go down 1. Am I going to the right or the left?
The left.
How many?
1, 3.
And this point is at negative what?
3.
Negative 3, what?
1.
1. And now I can connect it. And this is the line y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Are there any questions? Yes?
Do the lines always have to be perfect?
No. On a test, I want you to use a ruler. I definitely want you guys to use a ruler and make sure we extend our lines. If we don't extend our lines, then we have created rays. And these are not rays. This line never stops. So that's why I want to see 3 points, and I want you to have the ruler where it extends, and then you show me arrows that the line is continuous. Any other questions? Yes.
Can we look at the line was just straight?
If the line is just straight, are you saying just like this? We haven't learned what that is called.
Line segment.
That is a certain type of line.
Line segment.
It's a certain type of way to get a line like that. To get a line vertical, and horizontal. We haven't learned that yet, but we will. Any other questions?
Is there one gonna be a problem like that type of line?
Until we learn it? No. I will not give you a horizontal or a vertical line until we learn how to do it.
What does the X mean? What is it used for?
Right here,
Yeah.
the X and the Y.
Yeah.
You remember the formula where if I give you a point on the graph, you can figure out what the line is?
Yeah.
X and Y are points on the graph.
Oh.
They're points on the graph. You remember it was the what formula do we use where we need a point? Point
Slope.
slope
Formula.
formula. There we go. That's when that comes in. Point slope
Oh,
formula.
okay. Thank
You
you.
remember the y sub 1 minus y equals?
Alright, thank you.
Are we cool? Any other questions? All right, you good? Turn it off.